Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
To have you all join me with giving a warm welcome to our main speaker tonight, Don. Don M. Come on up here, Dave.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Go get him.
Yeah. My name's Don Morgan. I'm an alcoholic. I'm really glad to be here. Bob, thank you for asking me to come down. And this is the best deal in town. Couple of personal notes. This haircut cost $8. yeah, $2 tip. So I'm into it for $10, which should last me the rest of the year, I would think, wouldn't you? I was supposed to have a few little things removed on my head, so I thought I'd give the doctor a break, you know. And when I got home, I kept looking in the mirror. I thought I looked like somebody, and telling David, I finally figured out who it was. Spock. All ears, you know. Anyway, me and him sober tonight, and I'm grateful to be here. Happy birthday, David, and Susan. Happy birthday. And welcome to our chip guy, where there you are. You really touched me, man, talking about, coming in and out and in and out. I personally pray that you never have to do that again, but the voting system around here is broke down. We all vote, you stay here, but your vote's the only one that counts, you know. So, it's all on you now. We want you, and so God bless. I did a little, I always hate the word slipping, because I knew damn well what I was going to do when I did it. You know, I mean, it wasn't anything about slipping. It wasn't, I didn't wake up with a drink in my hand. I thought, that looks like a better deal than what I'm doing right now, you know. And I've tried to spend a lot of time thinking why people like me just keep drinking and drinking when the results are always the same, and I know they're going to be the same. You know, when I drink, I mean, I've drank since I was 13 years old. When I drank, I knew what I was going to do. I was going to be in trouble. I was born on probation. It's looking at the color of these walls. They look awful familiar to people that have been on probation a lot, you know. I just always knew I was going to be in deep trouble. But I think for me, the reason that I think I drank, I know it's because I'm an alcoholic, but the reason I think I drank was I didn't think it was going to do any good, but I just wanted to interrupt the madness for a little while. You know, not that I ever figured it was an answer, but so much going on up here and no answers, and a little alcohol or a little drugs or a little whatever, maybe a little mixed of both, could get me out of the madness for a minute. I've always felt inferior to everybody else, so a little drink brought me, even with everybody. Maybe quite a bit ahead, actually. You were inferior when I drank, by the way. But, I think that's the reason, because I don't ever think, gee, this is really going to solve it, I never really thought I'd drive better. I insisted upon driving, but I never thought, and I'd get arrested for drunk driving, or drunk walking, or drunk leaning, or drunk laying, or whatever. I've been arrested in a lot of different positions. You can fill that in if you want. But, I don't have any trouble at all believing that I'm an alcoholic. The thing that I might have trouble with if I don't keep doing this is I might think that there's other answers. You know, because I've seen a lot of people in Alcoholics Anonymous become born again, and then they don't need this, and I like to tell one little quick story about born again. And please don't anybody hit me with a Bible, because I don't mean this like I believe whatever blows your skirt up, go for it. You know, but I got a son that was just a stone alcoholic, drug addict, as bad as they come, worse than I was. And when he was very young, he'd call me and say, "Dad, I need $50 to get out of jail." And man, I was making some good money in those days, and I thought $50 isn't anything. It's kind of chump change, you know. But I'd have to tell him, because of my association with people in Alcoholics Anonymous, I can't do it, Mike. I love you too much. And it didn't make any sense some of the times to me and none of the time to him. But he used to tell other members of the family, I had excuse me, I got a little allergy thing going here, besides alcoholism. Other members of our family would talk about maybe Uncle Don will help me get out of this trouble. I'm in trouble with a drug dealer. And my son would tell him, "No, you better deal with the drug dealer rather than Uncle Don, because he'll give you all that AA crap, you know." And, so anyway, my son got sober, and he hung around here with us for about 14 years, and maybe a little longer. And turned out to be everything that a guy would want for his son, you know, because he was clean and sober and living a good life and doing things different. And then he got going to church and met a gal, and they're born again Christians. And you know, I look at their life and it's wonderful. But when he first got born again, he came over to the house for Christmas, and he said, "I'd like to say the blessing." And it was actually about a week before Christmas, and I said, "Yeah, fire away." So we're all holding hands, you know, and he said, "Oh, thank you." He's going, "In Jesus' name," you know, and we're just rattling, you know, and I could just feel the power there. And the prayer went on almost to Christmas, you know. That's kind of the trouble sometimes. They get so full of fire, they don't know where to cut it off. Because I'm going to quit on time. I think it's 10 of, right? Is it? 5 of? Okay. So I'm going to quit on time. But anyway, he just, "In Jesus' name," you know. So we sat down and we ate a really nice dinner my wife fixed. And then we're sitting down relaxing after dinner, and he yelled at one of my younger kids about something. And I said, "Why don't you just take care of your two, and I'll take care of my two." In about 5 minutes, he's saying, "I'm going to kick your fucking ass." And I'm going, "What happened to all that?" And Jesus, you know, I don't think he could go share that at the church he's at, you know, but we say it here and we get a big round of applause. Yeah. Told my dad I'd kick his ass. "Hey, way to go, man. Keep hanging in there," you know. So it's kind of neat. I like this treatment, you know. Get a stroke for screwing up a little once in a while. You know, I don't know anything about when you cross the line, or I don't know anything about alcoholism other than that IR one. And so anything I say tonight is pretty much my own opinion. I try to stick to the book and my opinions. And so I don't know a lot about what it takes to be an alcoholic. My mother's an alcoholic. My dad's an alcoholic. Every member of our family that I know, you know, so I kind of think maybe you can hand that stuff down, you know, because they were all pretty good drinkers. But before I knew I was alcoholic, before I had a drink, I think I had the ism, you know, because I had a lot of issues, and I'm 67 years old. We didn't talk about, "Oh, this young man has learning disabilities." You know, they just said, "This young man's dumber than shit," you know. So we didn't this young man belongs somewhere besides his school, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And I got to tell you that I was scared to death of school. I mean, I'm not talking about a little bit, and I'm not talking about, like my sister didn't like it a whole lot, but she struggled and got C's and sometimes a B. I didn't struggle. I was scared to death. I was also scared to death about getting in trouble, but getting in trouble was not as fearful for me as staying there and filling those papers out. That was sheer fear, uncontrollable Nutsville. And I used to do all kinds of crazy things to get thrown out, and to, you know, if you ever do that again, that all sounded better than sit there and put your name and do those problems, because I couldn't do them. Now, I'm not saying I wouldn't do them, I couldn't do them, and I can't do them today. But I can tell people today I can't do them. I can tell you that I don't know how to spell worth a god dang. And when I read, words jump around. When the pressure of reading in front of people, I can read something that I've read 100 times. I usually can get by AA literature by reading it just because I've read it so many times. But at book studies, I'll sit there, and I don't do this right now, by the way, but I'd sit there and I never heard one word. I'd watch the book go around. Just about when it got my turn, I'd go, I gotta go to the head, I'll be right back. So I'd go to the bathroom, and I'd look, and it looked like it would passed up enough that they wouldn't say, oh, Don missed his turn. I'd come back. And that's the kind of stuff even in AA that I wasn't telling anybody, you know. And then after a lot of years of being around, I finally got more truthful, and I wouldn't do an inventory. I met a guy right down here at Venice. I heard him speak one night, and I loved his pitch. He got up there and he said, I just want to start off by telling you, my name's Frank. I'm a drug addict and an alcoholic and a liar and a cheat, and I think I'm a ladies' man, and I think a lot of stuff, and none of it's really true. So I'm going to bust myself right up front, and that was, I guess, in case he hit on anybody, they'd already know he was full of shit. So I loved what he said. I loved what he said. So I asked him if I couldn't come over, that I wanted to work on the 11th step. Now, I'd been around here 8 years, and I hadn't done, you were pointing to some pretty nice stuff, but I figured I did maybe 1, 2, 3, and then kind of skipped to 13. So I go there and I tell this guy I want to do the 11th step with him. So I get over there. Now, if you've been on this program a while and you've worked it and it's cooking for you and the promises have come into your life, and a guy like me shows up, I might as well wear a hat, a dunce hat, because you can look right through me, I'm pretty sure. Because I sat down and I said, he says, what's this about wanting to do the 11th step? I said, I don't think I meditate enough. And he looked at me and he says, have you done an inventory? Now, I'm talking about the 11th step. Why do you go all the way back there? And I said, well, and he said, no, fuck well. Do you know how to say yes or no? And I thought, man, I don't know. Maybe I'm asking the wrong guy. So I said, no, I haven't. But in a way, he said, I heard the first part. I was going to explain. That guy taught me more about not listening to long, drawn-out stories than anybody I've ever had anything to do with, because you either said yes or no, or yes, I am writing, or, he didn't want any. I'd say, but here's the reason. I don't care about the reason, Don. I don't care. I'd say, well, I was on location long hour. I don't care. Quit your job. I can't quit my job. It's an important job at this. No, I don't want to hear that shit. So I said to him, look, I can't spell. He said, I don't care, Don. You got to do an inventory. I said, look, Frank, could I do one on tape? He said, no, written inventory like everybody else. I said, now, Frank, let me just say this. No, I said, let me say this. If I was blind, man, wouldn't you let me, give you an inventory. Yeah, but you're not, so it's the only time I've ever BS'd this guy. I explained to him how hard it would be for me to write an inventory and that I could zip right through a taped inventory. So he goes, okay, go ahead. So I go out now. Why I figured this amount, I bought 5 hours of tapes. Wouldn't you like to be my sponsor? And I get the tapes, and I wait. My wife, my ex-wife, I thought was probably on a ladder looking in. I really thought people were really that interested in me. And she'd leave, and I'd walk out, make sure the car was gone, nobody was down the street. And I mean, I'm serious about this. I'd do all this stuff. Then I'd come back and I'd listen to how my voice sounded. Don Morgan for sobriety, and play it back. Anyway, I'd start on this tape inventory. And, you can talk forever explaining nothing, and tape, nobody's shutting me up, and I just was having a great time with this inventory. It took a long, long time, and I used all 5 hours of tapes. And I used to hide them behind the bathtub. And I'd figure my wife's arm would come to about here, so I'd get in there, far enough that I figured she would. All this stuff that nobody cared, no one cared. We always think, Jesus, if they find this out, And no one wanted to find it out. No one. Except maybe my sponsor, just to help me save my life. So I get the 5 hours of tapes. I go over, I sit down, we get a cup of coffee or whatever going, and he says, all right, let's hear it. I turn it on, and he says, Jesus Christ, shut that off. Shut it off. I'm about 30 seconds into my inventory, which leaves 4 hours and, long time. So he says, what is that shit? He accused me of stealing a script from As the World Turns, and I said, Frank, this is my inventory, man. If you don't approve of it, that's your problem. I did it. You listen, all right? Turn it on. So we listened to maybe another minute, and he said, you know what, Don, I can't handle it this weekend. Come on back next Saturday. I said, Frank, if we get through 30 seconds or a minute a week, it's going to take a long time to get this inventory over. And I'm in a hurry. I've been here 8 years and haven't done shit. Now I want to get going here. So I keep coming back to him, and he keeps listening, and falling asleep, and yeah, okay, Don, And so now I'm getting a little relaxed, bringing the tapes back and forth. So I leave him at his house this one time, and I call him to find out what time I'm coming down that Saturday, and he says, yeah, I'm busy this Saturday. I can't do it this Saturday, so I wait till Saturday, and I thought, I'll give him a call anyway, see what's going on. I said, hey, Frank, how you doing, man? He says, great. I said, what are you doing? He said, I got a bunch of AA guys over here. I said, what are you doing? Because he didn't invite me. He said, we're listening to your tapes. He wasn't, but he couldn't have found a group of AAs to listen that long, I'm sure. But anyway, old Frank listened to all 5 hours of that junk, and he stood up and he came over to me and he says, guess what? And my heart sunk down to my feet. He says, now write a real inventory. I've listened to your goddamn story. And he said, cut to the chase, pal. I did this and it made me feel like that. You get it? I did this and it made me feel like that. Simple. Go do it. But Frank, I don't want to hear that shit, Don. Go do an inventory. You read it to me. I don't sit and, he got an A on fear, So that's what I did. I sat down and I wrote 27 pages, which is quite a bit also, but I wrote 27 pages, and there was nothing, 2 paragraphs, it was all, I did this, it made me feel like that, those other things, blah, 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 blah. And when I read it to him, he stood up and he welcomed me to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'd been here 8 years, and he'd only been here 6, which I've never let him forget. But, you know, that day I told him I hadn't done any inventory. He says, "What have you been doing around here for 8 years?" And I said, "Well, I sponsor a lot of guys." He said, "You sponsor a lot of guys? What do you talk to them about?" I say, "AA." He said, "You don't know anything about AA." You know? And that's the truth. You know, because there's a ton of people in this organization that don't do all of that, because we got a little clause in there about these are suggested steps. This is a suggested way of living. I imagine on a parachute it says it's a suggestion to pull the ripcord, count to 10, pull a ripcord. You don't need to do it. It's just a suggestion. If you don't, you're dead. If you don't do that, you're dead. And I didn't believe it. I believe it now. And I got to tell you another sad thing. You got to keep doing it. I'm 32 years sober, and I'm doing pretty much what I did. Well, I got to tell you the truth. I started to say from the first day I got here, but after I did an inventory, I'm doing the same thing now. I pray in the morning for God to show me how to do it, because man, I forget from day to day. If I did it good today and I don't ask for a little help tomorrow, I will guarantee you that I'll figure a way of screwing it up. So I ask for help to a higher power that I don't always understand. I understand it sometimes. And I'll tell you when I understand it the most is when a guy calls me and tells me, "I got to see you, Don. I've got a problem." And he gives me a little hint what it is, and I say, "Come on over." And I'm sweating bullets because I don't know what to say to the guy when he gets here. I don't know, I can't think of the first word to start saying, "Here's what I think will help you." I just come up with all this blank. The guy pulls up in my driveway. We get a couple chairs out. We sit down, and I say, "What's the problem?" He tells me, and some glorious stuff comes out of me that I don't really realize where it came from, like the answer. So I read that God talks through people, and then I feel like I'm one of the people that he talks through on a good day when I'm willing to do what I'm supposed to do, that I'm the microphone. He's the speaker, I'm the microphone, and nothing more. I have guys, you know, like you were talking about, I have guys tell me what a wonderful sponsor I am and what a great guy I am. And you know what? I'm really a guy that's got not as much fear as I came in here with, but I have a lot of fear, and I feel like a lot of times I'm going to be found out. Because you know what? When you see a movie and it gives all the credits, it says director of photography. It'll say Donald M. Morgan, ASC on a lot of them, or some of them, or very few of them. And that's me. That's me. And we go to meetings, and we sit, and they always give us a legal pad and a pencil, and everyone sits down and they go, "You know what I think this film needs?" And they say something, and everybody goes, "That's a great idea," and everybody writes. You know, I always curl the end up like this, and I look like I'm writing. I go, "That's a good idea," you know. Yeah, 2 of those, I'd say. And I walk out of there trying to remember everything everybody suggested without ever writing anything down, because I can't spell. And even the stuff I can spell when I'm on the spot like that, I forget. Now, I've got an AA wife that is the loveliest woman I've ever known in my absolute life. I love her so much. And I'm so comfortable with her, I say, "How do you spell, you know, whatever?" And I might have just asked it. And she never, ever says, "Don, I just told you how to do that." And she helps me through all of this. And I don't feel embarrassed. I sit at book studies, and if I vapor lock, she says the word, and I go on, and people hear it, and I don't care. And then a wonderful thing happened to me here 2 years ago. I've always kept this secret from the people at work. You know, a lot of times I'll say, could you fill out my start slip? I'm in a hurry, I'll sign it. And I'll never tell people why. You know, I just live this. You know, when you said secrets, you know, that's a secret I've lived with a lot of sobriety, you know. And I'm still thinking that people care, you know. Now, I came out of the ignorant closet about 2 years ago in front of everybody. I go to dinner with my agent and another cinematographer that's a guy that I really respect, and he's won some awards, and he's really, I look at him and I know that he's a lot brighter than I am, because everyone is. And I look at him and we're sitting there, and why does he share this with us? I'll never know. He starts talking, we're up in Toronto and we're having dinner. Why does he say, I can't spell? And my ears, you know, they're not little, but they get bigger. And I said, you can't spell. And we spent the rest of the night talking about, no, I can't spell. And I said, you don't know what this means to me. I said, I've never talked about this, and I told him about AA and how that's the only place I can level with people. He said, oh, bullshit, I don't care who, you know, if they're not going to hire me because of that. And he's directed films now. He's gone on and become a director and a bunch of stuff. And I go, man, this has been the best evening of my life. So now I go around telling everybody, you'll have to fill that out. I don't know how to do it. And nobody's quit hiring me. Nobody's cares. And what a freedom. And it's taken, you know, about 30 years in the business to do it. But what the hell, I'm young. I'll be around for 2-3 more years. And so I guess the reason for this story is that no matter where you're at in your sobriety, whether it's whether you just got out of an institution or a sober living place or whatever it is, whatever part of the life that I'm walking on this path, this is so exciting to me. I mean, I've never gotten bored with AA. Never. I mean, I pray every morning. My wife and I pray together. I was married for 22 years on this program, and I'd hide. I'd go in the bathroom and lock the door, and I'd pray, because my ex-wife would say, I've had it up to here with that shit, you know, and she didn't she wouldn't have liked what she had either if it hadn't been for AA, but she doesn't know that. Because I'm not a very nice guy. I've got a lot of stuff that I've packed around for a long time, and how do you get rid of it? You know, we pointed over here. We got a 4th step. And how do we really get rid of it? We do the 5th step. And we don't want to tell our sponsor, you know, because we want that person to think we're as the best. And the only way they think we're the best is if we get really honest and get down and get rid of that stuff. And so I've done that now, and I've done it a couple times. And I got to tell you that 20 years later, I wrote an inventory for my sponsor, Frank. And I said, Frank, without you asking, I'm doing an inventory. That was another wrong thing I told him, because he'd say, where the hell's this inventory? I said, man, I've been out of town. No pencils out of town? You know, and I'm already sober 22 years, and he's still chewing me out like he did in the beginning, you know. You know, when I was going over there all the time, and sharing with him and doing the inventory, and one time I go over there, and in my inventory, I had stole a little piece of camera equipment that fit on my camera. I'd stolen it from Panavision, and a guy handed it to me, and I stuffed it, you know, just like a thief in the night. I went like this, and I said, why'd you hand me that? He said, it'll fit on your Aeroflex, the eyepiece. And so I sneak it, and I steal it. And I have it for about 6 or 7 years, this stolen piece of camera equipment. And it started looking bigger each year, you know. It started looking, I better get its own case, you know. It's really getting big here. So I tell Frank about it, and Frank says, you gotta come clean. You gotta go out to Panavision, tell him you stole this piece from him. I said, Frank, lot of shit you don't know, Frank, and here's one of them. You don't go to Panavision as a cameraman and tell them you stole some of their stuff, because they rent cameras all over the world. That'd be the end of my career. He said, oh, good, we got a new higher power. Panavision, it's your higher power, good. I said, no, man, come on, you can understand this. It'd be better if I sent it anonymously. He said, yeah, I bet that would be better. Go on out there and tell him you copped it, you know. And I went out and I called this guy and I said, I gotta meet with you. And he said, yeah, come on over, Don, you know. So I go over there and I got it in a little brown bag like a jug, you know. So I said, they're used to me being pretty up, you know, because I know this is the end of my career, but so I sit down and he says, what can I do for you, Don? You know, now they can hear out the door, you know. And I said, you could start by shutting the door. And he shuts the door. And I said, you know, I don't quite know how to get started, but I belong to a program that demands rigorous honesty. And I got to tell you something about me. And I hope that it doesn't hurt my relationship with you. And again, I'm talking, so I'm going on and on and on. I really hope that this will not. So he says, what is it, Don? And I open it, I set it down, and I said, I stole that periscope eyepiece from you about 7 or 8 years ago, and I got to bring it back. He said, good. When did this happen? You know, and I told him what happened and how I ended up with it. He said, we'll put it back in stock, and no one will ever know the difference. And I said, oh man, I really appreciate it. And he says, and no one will ever know about it, Don. It dies here. He said, are you in AA? And I said, yeah, how'd you know? He said, well, I've gone to a few meetings. Well, the guy died several years later, and he never made this program, but he knew what we were talking about. And he said, I've never seen anybody really do that. I didn't know that you really did that, you know. that you became that honest, and you know, and so it was really nifty to do that. And I felt really good, and I took several steps out that door before this started working, and I thought, you'd have thought he'd have given me that after all these years, you know. Because I can stay spiritual almost to the front door, you know. I told Frank when I needed to work on the 11th step that he said, now what you got to do is he likes all this Eastern stuff, so you cross your legs and you hold your hands a certain way, and I think you hold your palms up so you're not holding anything in and all that, you know. And he says, just sit there and don't chase your thoughts. And wallpaper was really big in our house, and I'd sit and I'd look at wallpaper and I'd make faces out of it, and I'd try to look somewhere else, you know. It was like looking at clouds, you know, and making faces. And I just, you know, it was hard, so I modified it and I closed my eyes, and then I'd start wondering if all the pressure in all 4 of my tires was the same, and I'll tell you, it's a bitch to meditate, and I'm not great at it now, but I'm better. I told him one time there was a group that was doing 11-step workshop, and the guy that did it was doing transcendental meditation. And I said, you gotta sit still for about 10 minutes and dream of, you know, think of some other place that, you know. I told him all this. Frank says, I don't go much for that kind of shit, but he says, anything that can keep you sitting still for 10 minutes, do it. So I did that, and it did help. And you know, I guess through the years you pick up a little here and a little there, and you read. You know, I do read, and I've read a lot of Emmett Fox, and lately I read that book, 2 of the 3 Conversations with God, and I believe a lot of that stuff. You know, I believe that God talks through people, and I believe that He talked through that guy, and a lot of that stuff made sense to me, because I don't think there's a chosen few, and I don't think there's a chosen color, and I don't think that I don't believe that God gives me free will and then punishes me for using it. And my kid and I go round and around about that, so we don't talk anymore about religion. But I believe that whatever hell there is, I'm going to make it. And I've already been there, and I'm back, and I don't want to go there again. How do I keep from going there? I do this. I read those. I read the big book. I go to meetings. I go to them when I don't want to go to them. I sponsor a lot of people. I had a guy used to call me at 11:30 to 12 every night and tell me his trouble. I said, do you ever have a fucking problem around 9:30? He killed himself. Put a gun in his mouth and took his toe and blew the back of his head off, and we didn't see him for a while. Had a couple guys bang on his door, and finally we heard that he killed himself. And he couldn't get this deal, you know. He kept drinking, and I kind of wish tonight that I could look forward to him calling at 11:30 or 12 o'clock, you know. I wish the guy. So I don't ever do that anymore. You call me at 3 in the morning, I'll get up, and I'll shake it off, and I'll talk to you till you want to quit talking. And that's the way I do it now. I don't feel guilty about that guy killing himself, but I'm never going to feel like I'm put out talking to another alcoholic, not ever. And that's a promise that I'm not only making to you, I'm making to me. And I got guys that call me late, and I got guys that wake me up in the morning, and I don't care. Because there's only two things we talk about in here: romance and finance. So we get right with it. I've got that down pretty good. That's 90% of what people call me about is their relationship or their job or their money or whatever. And once in a while we throw a little AA in there, and that's what I just sit around and wait for. The time that I told Frank about this, giving this thing back and all that, he asked me to follow him down to a motorcycle shop, and he had to take his motorcycle in. He says, would you follow me down? And I'm driving down in my van, and I love this guy Frank so much. I'm driving along, and I'm thinking, God, I get to do something for old Frank, you know. He pulls into this motorcycle place, and I'm sitting in my van, and it's like I'm looking at God himself, you know. I'm thinking, my sponsor rides a motorcycle, you know. He's really good. So he sits there, and a guy comes out, and they're talking shit like I remember, all this undercover kind of stuff. And the guy goes in, and he comes out, and he goes like this, and he pulls a part out, and Frank's looking at it, and they're looking around. You know, we look around a lot, you know, and try to look suspicious, right? And they go like this, and finally they shake their head. And so I follow Frank home. He says, well, I'll have to come back some other time. And I sit down with him, and I said, Frank, I got to ask you a question. Was you going to steal that part? He said, yeah. And I said, well, remember when I stole the Panavision part and you had me take it back? He said, yeah. I said, what's the deal? He said, you cared, I don't. I said, what the kind of, you know, and I tell him that now, and he remembers it, but I don't think he does that stuff anymore. But you know, Alcoholics Anonymous has given me back everything. I could have wrote down the wildest story, or put it down on tape, I'm sure, but I could have put down the wildest story in the world, and I've lived a better life and a more interesting and a more exciting and scarier than I could have ever put down on paper or tape. One time I got a job. I hung around, and I got a job as an assistant cameraman for a guy that did aerial photography. And the first job he ever sent me on, I'd been sober a little while, kind of coming in and out of AAA, and I thought, I get on this airplane, and he says, they got you first class flying to the East Coast. So I'm sitting up there, I got my pennies tie on, man, and I'm looking really cheap. And I'm sitting there, and they start pushing the cart down, and they had those little bottles of booze in, you know, and they kind of, the forced perspective, they get kind of big when they get to you if you haven't been drinking and you're not working a program. And the gal says, would you like a drink? And I said, yeah, give me a couple of those scotches, will you? So I belt that down. And in about 2 seconds, I'm ready to fly the airplane. And I hadn't had a cigarette in 2.5 years. And I said, you got any of them comp cigarettes? I'm sitting looking out that window. I've never been first class on anything in my life. And I'm just thinking, man, I'm really something. And I'm smoking and drinking. And I said to the guy next to me, so what do you do? And he says, I'm in toys. And he gives me his card. And I go, I must have left mine at home. Never had a card in my life. So I said, I must have left mine at home. He said, what do you do? I said, I'm a cameraman. Now, I was supposed to be an assistant cameraman, but a couple of scotches gave me a raise. I became a cameraman. So I was telling him all this shit about aerial photography. I'd never been on a job yet. Yeah. He said, that's pretty dangerous. I said, yeah, don't bother us, because we haven't done it yet. Before it's over with, the gal comes and she says, no, I didn't have much of a background. I had a 6th grade education, you know, no big deal. She comes with red and white wine. I thought wine was wine, you know. She says, would you care for red wine or white wine? I said, I like them both. Only got one glass. She said, well, red or white? And so she pours it. I'm drinking. I say, hey, honey, could you give me another? You know, I'm like I'm in a bar on an airplane. Honey, they love that. So I'd say, give me another one of them wines. And the guy next to me, I'm gone. I'm sitting there. Yeah, toys. Yeah, I'm a cameraman. He starts to send his tray back, and he hadn't finished his wine. I said, let me have that. Now, I don't ever drink any different, you know, so for me to bullshit myself about sitting there and having a sip with the wife and talking about the opera, never going to happen, never going to happen. We know a guy that I sponsored for 19 years that decided with a cigar club he belonged to and a new 29-year-old girlfriend and a few things that after 19 and a half years that he figured out he could do it now. And the 3rd time he tried it, he came home and said, get your shit and get the fuck out of here. And then the next morning he's kissing up trying to, you know, and I didn't mean that. And I said, you're always going to do that. You ain't ever, I know your story. I used to pick you up at Chandler Lodge and take you for a hamburger. And I have a sneaking hunch I'm going to do it again. He's a big shot making a lot of money. I said, it's going to come around your ankles like dirty socks, man. You don't get another chance at this. Alcoholism, lady told me they're doing push-ups while we're in here, getting ready for you, you know? And now he's got that little ego problem, and I heard the other night again, the ego is not our amigo. I love that. And he's taken Antabuse, so the doctor's doing for him what God couldn't do, you know, and all that crap. Boy, I beg of you, don't ever let any of that. Don't get away from this deal. No matter how boring it is to you or whatever, get on board, get involved, do something, you know. I got a kid waiting for me to come home, 15-year-old, and he says, where are you going? I said, I'm going to speak at a meeting. Oh, good, I'll see you when you get back. And he's talking about, you know, he knows that I'm in AA. And I got another 13-year-old. I do a lot of stuff that I never was able to do with, you know, I flew model airplanes with my one son, and that isn't what I set out to do, you know, but I do it. I guess one little last quickie, you know, I ran away a lot, and I grabbed a gun from my stepdad one time, and I was in Pasadena, and I got arrested for carrying a gun when I was 13, and they said, if you ever come back here, you're going to go to a, you know, reform school or whatever. And none of that stuff really ever mattered to me. I always wanted to be on death row without actually doing the time. You know, I wanted that handle. I wanted to be the tough ex-con, but never go there. So I didn't care about that. So a few months later, I stole another gun from the same stepdad, and I go over there, and I got it down here in my pants, and I'm showing everybody, and I'm acting tough. I love those old tough movies, you know. And I got thinking I might shoot something off down there I don't want shot off. So I put the bullets up here in my pocket like Andy a Mayberry, you know. It's kind of always wanted to be tough, but I never quite made it. That kind of loses something in the story, you know. And I get arrested again, and the cops shake me down, and I was sleeping in the YMCA, and I put the gun in the back, and they're feeling me, and they didn't find the gun. And I thought, well, maybe I'll get off with this. And I go down there, and they said, what's your name? And I says, I ain't got no name. So what's your goddamn name? I said, I haven't got a name. I seen that in a gangster movie. He takes his sap and he hits it between my hands. He said, what's your goddamn name? I said, Don Morgan, I live in Burbank over on the... God, I hate those times, you know. I wanted to be tough. He said, now where's that goddamn gun? And I said, it's right here. And they all fell on the floor, you know. I've been trying to get that feeling back all these years. So we go over to Pasadena. I've been nominated for an Emmy several years later. My girlfriend, now my wife's, we're driving her neat little Mercedes. She's dressed up like a little doll, and I got a monkey suit on, you know. I never had a tux on. Go over there, and it takes forever to get to my category, and they go, and movie of the week, and they name the guys, and they go, and the winner is Don Morgan, you know. I go, my girlfriend says, get up, you won. And I know they don't give guys like me an Emmy, so I'm afraid to get up. I'm afraid I'm going to take 2 steps, and they go, not you, we meant him. I go up there and I thank them, and they give you this Emmy, and they shoot pictures, you know, and you go around the corner, and someone takes it away from you, and this little tiny girl grabs it from you, and I go, you know who you're fucking with? She said, they'll give you another one upstairs. Yeah, I've heard that shit before. So I go upstairs and I get one, you know, and I come back and I do a head trip. All next day I'm going, boy, it must have been a really bad year for, you know, I just, you know, hey. Then I get another award from the American Society of Cinematographers. I don't even know how to spell it, but I are one. Since then, I've been nominated for 6 Emmys. I've won 3. I've won 4 ASC. I'm the only winner of the ASC award. They don't even know I don't know how to spell it. And you know, I didn't do anything but show up here and get a couple of breaks. See, I've always had breaks, but I've never been able to accept them. I'm going to drink at them like that airplane ride, or I'm going to do something. I went over just like my inventory, sorry. God bless.
Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst and one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.